So I'm going to call this meeting to order. I don't think there are any changes to the agenda. Do we have any comments from the public?
No, Deborah, there are no comments from the public.
Okay, and I guess I should correct myself. Kathy did send us an updated version of the county values resolution, so just be aware of that. So let's see, is Jason here?
Yes, he is.
All right, let's let Jason go because I know he has a really important meeting at 4 o'clock.
No, I don't. Well, I have to sit. Commissioner Zucker and some folks from the state sent out a meeting notice for us to attend.
Darcy looked clean cut today.
I did. I shaved, Mike. I got sick and tired of tasting my dinner 3 days later. I was like, that's it. I'm shaving. I'm done. I'm cleaning it up.
Jason, that doesn't have to be with a beard, you know.
Well, it you know, that, and when I go outside, it freezes. It's just enough. Like enough's enough. So I cleaned up. Thanks for noticing, Mike. So I'm sorry I have to leave at 4. I have a meeting with the state on vaccines. I don't know what it's about, but they just sent it out. So real quick, just some updates. I'll give a broader review of the impact of the state budget to what we know to date at our legislative meeting next Tuesday. But I had a few items just to point out, and I'll probably also bring them up at Friday's Tiger meeting as well. These are probably issues that we should consider, you know, staying tuned into, or at least talking to our state legislators about. Some of it is monetaries, and some of it is not. So I'll go through it real quick, and then I can answer any questions. And I thank you for moving me up on the agenda. One of them is the state diversion. So we've had two issues of state diversion of sales tax over the past 2 years. One is the AIM aid, which, believe it or not, with this total shifting of towns and villages over to diversion of sales tax, there were some downstate folks that didn't. We actually make a little bit of money off it. So, but it's still about $310,000 that we're giving up of sales tax that we weren't 2 years ago. And then this distressed hospital fund, which was created last year, payments deferred to this year, and sunsets at the end of March of 22, is about $330,000. So in all, it's about $640,000 that's being diverted from sales tax that wouldn't have if you went back 2 years. You know, so that's not a good thing for us. It was supposedly supposed to be more from the distressed hospital fund, but because it's based off of sales tax receipts, it went down a little bit for us. But I would have rather paid more out of distressed hospital fund than lose the amount of sales tax we did. But so that's an issue I think to keep an eye out. I know NISAC will be lobbying with that, but it's probably something we should also lobby with. Our assemblywoman contacted me over the weekend and this morning just to get a little better explanation of it. So I explained to Anna Kellis just how the distressed hospital fund is set up. Something else to think about, there's about 6 of them. Jail staffing, it's vague in the NISAC impact report, so I've asked for clarity from NISAC to what they can share with us is what's been proposed from the governor's office. There's been a proposal that would allow localities to set, meaning counties, to set their own staffing levels. There was very vague though, it wasn't anything specific, so I want to know a little bit more about that. Obviously that can impact us financially at some point in time, particularly if we continue to have low jail numbers. But have to maintain staffing levels for the full amount of beds in the jail. Another thing that wasn't in the NISAC impact report is SJSTP funding and COPS funding. Don't ask me what those acronyms are. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but they're both preventative services out of DSS. One is about 50 grand, which is about the SJSTP funding. The other is COPS money. It's about 200 grand. All in all, about $250,000 that could be impacted. The state, this didn't come up in the NISAC report. It came up at the New York State Welfare Association meeting that Kit and her staff go to. And the state was very vague because they apparently the staff didn't know much about it other than it was in the budget, that there was a potential merger of the two funding sources and then a reduction of 20%. Now, we're one of the few counties, probably about a dozen counties in the state that gets COPS funding. COPS funding is funding that goes to preventative services to prevent foster care placement. We both have pretty good established programs with both of them. So for us, we would want to see this continued and not see a reduction in the total amount of funding. But I also sent some requests out to Dave Lucas and Ryan Gregoire to know a little bit more about the details of that, if there is anything. But apparently the OCFS staff didn't know much about it either at last week's conference that they went to. Community college information. So community colleges, again, FTE funding through FTE versus head count is going to impact all community colleges negatively. There were some elements of the state budget that were favored. I'm getting a list from Deb Olenoff on some of the things around community college funding. For example, there was continued capital funding in there, which I think they're supportive of, but not supportive of the way the funding is done based on FTEs versus headcount. So I'll get a little bit more detail on that. Civil service reform, along with some public safety reform. There are some recommendations that'll come out of the public safety report, predominantly around civil service reform. So NISAC's one resolution does talk about civil service reform initiatives. We would be supportive of all of those. Ruby, Lisa, and I met a while back, last week, to kind of go over some of that. And Jim Romer, our labor attorney, is looking at, he's going to recommend to us several changes to the discipline process for civil service, as well as the 207C process, which we would both want to advocate for changes around the public safety reform. So those will be forthcoming. The last is the Fmap Reconciliation. So Fmap, Deborah, you and I spoke about this last week. Fmap Reconciliation is now going on its 5th year. So the short answer to this is that when the Affordable Care Act came into effect, there was supposed to be certain aid that would be passed down to municipalities related to Medicaid. And every time the state would determine its weekly share, meaning what we would pay in Medicaid, they would withhold a certain percentage and then reconcile at the end of every year. And we would definitely get a check for that amount of money at the end of each year, anywhere between 100 to a few $100,000. We haven't had that 4 years, now going on 5 years, and we don't even know how much money it is. So I was talking with Kit and Tom Hurden last week about it. And Tom had made the comment that the DOH does the reconciliations and provides that information to the DOB. And I said, well, what if I filed a FOIL request to get what the amount is? I said, that seems pretty basic, right? So I spoke to NISAC Friday afternoon, and they were like, that's a great idea. And I was like, Jesus, I said, this isn't a hard concept, guys. So Tom's writing me up some language. I'm going to talk with Jonathan, and then I'll get with Ryan Gregoire and Pat Cummings from NISAC, because a lot of times when you do FOIL requests, they like it like either the attorney has to write for it, or the chief elected does, or the chief executive. So we'll get, if we have to, we'll get Leslie, mine, and Jonathan's signature on it. We'll get all three of them just to cover all the bases. And we'll put a FOIL request in to the DOH and the DOB on separate requests to see if we can actually get the amount of reconciliation that they allegedly have already calculated but are not paying us. And then, so when you put the FOIL request in, they have to do one of two things. They either have to honor it, or three things. They have to deny it and then give you a reason on why they deny it, or they'll have to tell you that they'll get it to you after such amount of time. So if they deny it, then we'll know what they're denying it on, and then we can go from there. And if they grant it, then I could bet you that there'll be 50 some odd other requests that'll come a week later. And then you'll start to at least start to pick away at what it is that we are owed, so we know that. And then hence it rises to the bigger question of, all right, when are we going to get this money? Because here's my concern, and I'll end on this. My concern is that this is going to get lost. There was no Medicaid reform this year. And with FMAP continuing, this emergency FMAP continuing probably to the end of this year, my concern is it's going to get lost, and then next year and the next year's state budget, we're going to get hit over the head with some Medicaid reform, and they're going to forget about it, or they're going to try to swindle it in somehow to the Medicaid reform. So I think keeping it on the forefront is a good thing. And then this FOIL request was just something that came to my mind, and apparently nobody's thought about it yet. So we'll submit a FOIL request. So that's my 2 cents.
That's delicious, Jason. He has a question, but before we get to that, Martha, I just wanted to ask, did we get any clarification? I know that in the budget, they talked about eliminating some sort of funding relating to Code Blue, but it wasn't clear if it was the reimbursement.
Right. So that there's inconsistencies in it. Hold on, let me pull up my report here. So when I spoke to Tom about it, Tom and Kit, they think NISAC's report doesn't reflect what it was, because there was nothing mentioned at the New York the Welfare Association about cutting Code Blue funding. So they think they may have got it wrong in the NISAC impact report. So thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about that. I'll have to send a clarifying note, another one to Dave and Ryan, because when I asked that, they said it wasn't brought up at that association meeting, which it would have if it was going to be cut. So I will ask that question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got Martha and then Mike.
Thank you, Jason. Tell Tom Hurden things. How long has he known that they calculate it but only keep it internal? I mean, that's a key piece of
Well, I
it.
asked him, I said, do you have a letter that says it? That would be better if I could get the letter attached. He's like, no, it's always been in conversations. I said, all right, well, he's going to write up a draft letter, kind of asking exactly what we're asking for. I'll circulate it with NISAC and see if they've got anything to add to it, and then we'll submit it, see what happens.
All right, that's great. I will tell you the Public Safety Committee, the NISAC Public Safety Committee meeting happened this morning, and Rich was on it too, and they did pass that resolution about civil service reform, including the rule of 3 reform that we had urged them to do for all civil service positions. The COPS fund, the COPS money, we've been worried for a number of years that was going to go away. I didn't realize we're one of just a few counties that actually uses it.
Yeah, we're about, I think there's a dozen, and we're one of them.
You know, it's really been a very important piece. I wonder if we could know who the other 11 counties are and maybe put something together with them. Very
That list.
You know, because it's like good money to spend. It really is preventive services that help us a lot. Finally, the Public Safety Committee did not talk about the jail staffing issue unless I had to leave after, a little bit early. Rich, they didn't talk about it. They manage often to talk about old issues that just dredge up the same old issues and don't necessarily get to the current ones. But
I have a feeling that this proposal is maybe at conflict. NISAC may be slow to take a position because it may be in conflict with the Sheriff's Association.
mhm.
The original proposal I heard a few months ago was that it was going to allow either the legislative bodies or the chief executive in partnership with the sheriff set staffing, which would add a nice check and balance versus I think the Sheriff's Association wouldn't want to give up that authority. So I don't know where NISAC is on this, and I don't know the detail of it, but if it's something like that, they're going to be slow to probably take a position because they're not going to want to ruffle feathers with the Sheriff's Association.
So it'd be interested, but we don't know yet if it's even true. Is that right?
There's something about staffing being set locally, but I don't know the details of it. That's what I've asked for clarity
Okay.
from that.
All right. Thank you very much.
That's all I have.
No, I'm just waiting on Mike.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, they didn't call on me. Okay. Over the weekend, hearing a lot about the potential $1.9 billion new stimulus bill, 1.9 trillion, I should say. And a couple of comments, folks that were opposed to the money in there for the state and local governments. I think there's 360 billion, I think was the figure I heard. They're going on about California and New York particularly not needing this money. And they were saying that New York its revenues are only down less than 2%. Are you hearing anything like that? That's not what we've been led to believe here.
I know revenues are better than what they projected several months ago, so it cut the deficit in half. I'll be honest, I don't quite understand how the state makes those determinations, and I don't know that anybody else does either. There's never clarity on it. I mean, if you remember, if we go pre-COVID, the state budget had a $6 billion deficit. Now the state budget kind of has a $6 billion deficit.
Yeah.
So where is that coming from? I don't know. I don't know how it's been so convoluted over the past few months as to what it is and what it isn't. I don't know how to make I don't know how to decipher what's right and what's not.
Well,
Like I heard Senator Cassidy say that it was on Meet the Press, and I thought, what, 1% or 0.5%? Whatever, he said revenues. And if that includes like federal revenue, I mean, that's, who knows what's included in the word revenue. But I also saw a message from the comptroller's office that I think that sales tax overall was down 10% this last year. So it just, I'm sure all in the word revenue definition.
Well, you know what they say, figures don't lie, but liars sure can figure.
I didn't expect you to have a real answer, Jason. I just wondered if you heard anything about it.
Yeah, it's mixed, right? It's a mixed messaging. The state budget has a dependency on $3 billion of unrestricted aid, $3 billion this year, $3 billion next year. And if we get that, then we only have a 5% reduction. But if we get 15 billion, we don't have as much of a reduction, or a little bit less, but proportionally it doesn't make out. We should all be making out if there's $15 billion of deficit of unrestricted aid. So I don't know how they do their books. And I don't know like how they come up with some of these numbers, to be honest with you, Mike.
Thanks again.
Okay, any other questions for Jason? All right then. So we'll move on to the Director of Finance report. Let's see. There's Rick. Hi, Rick.
Good afternoon. I have no report for you this afternoon.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so now the Chair's report. Before we talk about our committee goals.
Can I just ask Rick?
I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Or maybe in general, when do we have to decide about whether we're going to be a full committee as the audit committee?
I thought we already decided that, but
Have we?
I brought it to your attention, I think, a meeting or two ago, and I would assume that would be the case unless the chair directed otherwise. And I think everybody kind of nodded in agreement that was the way to go. It's one good way to get enough people there if everybody's invited from the budget committee to attend. I understand not everybody can absolutely make it, but if you would like a more formal.
No, I just want to understand that we've made that decision. I think it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, I found it really informative the last time. Martha?
Yeah, I remember, as Rick does, that he brought it to us, and we said yes. There was no motion or anything, but it was an informal agreement.
Right.
Kathy?
I just want to add that this is the first committee of the 2021 members, though. Probably should get on the record.
Okay, consider it on the record then. All right then, if there are no more questions for Rick, before we get started on committee goals, I want to address what I consider to be kind of an elephant in the room. Every member of this committee has more direct experience with county budget and county personnel than I do. And here I sit as chair of the committee, which is not only intimidating for me, but probably perplexing to other people. We know that we're losing at least 3 very experienced legislators at the end of this term. And I think leadership recognizes we're going to have another substantial influx of new people next year. And so they are they made committee appointments with the idea that some of the newer people would gain experience that all of you veterans have. So I understand that I'm here to learn. And in that spirit, I welcome your mentorship, your guidance, your advice. And all I ask is that when you tell me I'm doing something wrong or not doing something that I'm supposed to be doing, just tell me why. What is it that I'm supposed to be accomplishing, or what is it that I'm messing up, so that I understand how I erred. And in that spirit, let's go forward. And as Agnes Gooch used to say to Annie Mae, I'm your sponge. So, Martha.
Does that apply to other areas too besides budget?
No. Sure it does. I'm always willing to learn. Thank you. So with that, let's talk about our goals. I know that Martha and I've had a couple of conversations about this. One of the things, let me just tell you what we've talked about, and then I'll open it up to other suggestions. One of the things that I would really like to do is move the timetable for direct report evaluations up a bit, so we can get that finished before budget season starts and not have it hanging over into the next year the way it has this year. I mean, I know last year was kind of an unusual year. Let's hope it's completely unusual. But that's something I want to do. So I would like to get moving on the evaluations for Jason and Rick quickly. The other thing, obviously, we've got a lot of holes in our staffing in some really important positions, and we want to be as helpful as we possibly can be to Ruby and Jason as they move forward with posting those positions and filling them. So Ruby and Jason, if there's anything we as a committee or the legislature can do, please come and let us know. One of the things that's kind of left over from last year is we talked about having another look at the rollover policy. Not the entire fiscal policy. Dear God, I looked at that thing. It's so long and impenetrable. But let's have a look at the rollover policy and see if we can make that work better for us, at least as we face another 2 or 3 years of fiscal restraint. And then finally, something that I spoke with Lisa Holmes about was taking a close look at how many of our employees need to be on site working at all times. I mean, if there's anything positive we could have learned from this last year, it's that we don't always have to have everybody in the office 5 days a week. And that could be important information to have to share with F&I and downtown facilities. And fortunately, we have some good cross-pollination on this committee with those committees, because as we go forward making decisions about how large of a new facility and a downtown campus we need to have, it's important to know how many people we need to physically accommodate in those facilities. So those are my suggestions. Lisa Holmes informs me that she's already started looking at how many employees need to be on site. So this is not something coming out of the blue that's going to create a new burden for admin. So with that, let's hear from the rest of you. Don't be shy, Mike.
I'd like us to talk about how we learn about disciplinary proceedings and trouble. In the past, it usually was brought to this committee in executive session. And I think that's a good way for things to start. I think there needs to be a sounding board to the legislature before it comes to the legislature in executive session to the full crisis mode perhaps. So I would like to talk about that and how we would expect to learn about things in advance.
Okay. That's fair. Anything else? Okay, it looks like Mike's done. So I have Martha and Rich.
Thank you, Deborah. Sort of, I agree with what Mike just suggested. I think that's an important thing to do. I might even formalize the question. If a position requires legislature approval or confirmation for the appointment, should such a position also require legislative agreement to fire that person? Is that a policy? Is that, it seems parallel, it seems relevant. It might just be part of the same conversation having to do with any kind of discipline. I would also add to our goals the idea of really looking at demographics of our workforce. We are on record as extremely committed to diversifying our workforce, but we don't have the data to understand how we're doing. I understand in some cases that because we have some small departments, we may need to talk about data in executive session, even though their individual names are certainly not attached. But however, whether it's public or private session, executive session, I really think that should be a priority this year. We've talked about it a lot of years. I'd love to know how we're doing. So
How granular do you want to get with that, Martha? Do you want to do it overall, or do you want to do it department by department?
The data should certainly are knowable by department. Whether we know, I think the issue is kind of, mostly I'd like to know overall, but it would also be relevant to see whether we have a particular need to be more proactive on a certain department or a certain type of job category. But I would certainly start kind of with the overall picture. And if staff wants to digest some information and give us summary statements to guide our conversation, I could understand the sensitivities involved, but you know, there are different protected classes, and so I'd hope to be able to move forward and see if we need to be proactive in any particular directions.
Okay, thank you. Is that everything?
I think so, yeah, thanks.
Okay, Rich.
I note this is my first comment as a member of Budget, Capital, and Personnel. Just putting it out there.
Better make it good.
Well, right. I feel some pressure, and I also am speaking as a know-nothing. So here I go. RBA. We've talked about the connection between RBA and budget, and if we're looking at goals, is this something we could explore how to systematize that? So that's my thought.
Okay, and I assume for the benefit of the scads of members of the public who are watching, RBA is results-based accountability.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Sorry.
I'm just channeling Annie here. Okay, and Glenn.
Thank you. How's everybody today? Deborah, I think you hit the big three. The rollover policy, performance dialogue should be a lot, shouldn't take a year to get completed. And also the facilities usage, which is a big undertaking for everybody to identify just what we need for the coming years. Not only now, but in the future. So, and out of the three, it'd be the facilities usage that I like to concentrate on.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, that seems like plenty to keep us busy for the year. And if anybody thinks of anything else, let me know. And meanwhile, I will try to write this up. Are we doing this the way we did it last year, Jason? Should I be sending this to Amy?
We can, yeah, we just talked about that last week about using the similar format. I wrote down some things here too, so we can take a stab at populating it and then sending it back to you.
Okay, great. Thanks. So I'll just wait to hear from somebody in your shop. All right, super. That means we can move on.
Deborah, can I make
I'm sorry.
may I make sort of a side comment?
Sure.
Martha's comment, and I don't want to make any light of it. It's a pretty serious issue we need to consider, but couldn't help over the weekend heard 3 lectures on the history, on the history channels about the impeachment of Andrew Johnson. And he was being impeached for violating the Tenure of Office Act, which said if you had to have the advice of the Senate to appoint someone, you had to have the advice of the Senate to fire that person. And that if you're interested in that issue, you ought to take a look at some of the things surrounding that impeachment proceeding. So that's just a little history note.
So that's your reading assignment, Martha. Thanks for that, Mike. Okay. Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee update. That would be, is that you, Annie, or is that Henry who's not here? Okay.
That should be Henry.
All right. Well, in Henry's absence, Annie, are you still involved with that?
Yes. Do you want me to give you a little update? Well, I think I gave an update at the last legislative meeting of what we did. So I don't know if there's actually a whole lot more to share because I gave a rundown of what we did at our last WDIC meeting, and I'm not sure what Henry has on the agenda for the next one.
Okay, well then, could I get a motion on the resolution to adopt our county's organizational values? Martha moves, Rich seconds.
Move the one that the GO committee forwarded.
Yes. Is there anyone here from GO who would care to tackle an explanation of the differences or the tweaks that y'all made? Rich, please.
Yes, in fact, it was my motion on accountability to add the phrase "in pursuit of excellence" at the end of the sentence for accountability. Otherwise, it is sort of value neutral. It's just saying we'll be accountable for our mistakes. But they are what they are. And I think we're trying to raise the bar always.
Okay. Any other comments on this? Any discussion, questions? Martha?
Yeah, I was on the small group that worked on these values. We met a couple of times, and I know that there's a the Jedi, was it the Jedi group? I can't remember which groups there are, but so it came out of the climate survey. I think this is a positive thing. I like the idea that the values were boiled down to 4 things that were relatively memorable, relatively easy to digest. And I think that that's important. And I think these 4 items express a lot.
Okay, well, if there's no more discussion, are we ready to vote? Looks like we are. So, Mike?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Martha?
Yes?
Rich?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that passes unanimously. Thank you, WDIC, and thank you, Jedi, and thank you, Amy, because I know she's done a lot of work on these climate issues. Annie, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just one more thing I wanted to mention, that for WDIC, so Henry is the chair, and we voted in Rachel Graham, who works at the I want to say the clerk's department. Do I have the name right? But the office of the clerks, the county clerk's office. So I guess what I hadn't realized before until I read the bylaws is that it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be a legislative appointee to be vice chair. So we opened it up, and I guess that has been done before too, that a staff member has been vice chair, and possibly a member of the public also.
Well, that's great. It makes it more inclusive, doesn't it?
That's what I thought, and that's why I actually nominated her. And she's very active in JEDI and a lot of other things too.
Thanks, Annie. Any other comments on this? All right, then we'll have a report from Ruby.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I just want to thank you all for your support and your warm welcome in my new role as Commissioner of Human Resources. I have no regrets. Even after no regrets. I have no specific items for the agenda, but I would like to update you on just a few things that we've been doing here. Since starting, I've been meeting with the HR team once a week as a group. And our theme, and I'm just proposing it for everybody, is one team, one voice, to streamline our processes, to get everything in line so that when we respond to any inquiries, we're speaking as a team and we're speaking with one voice. And I think that's important in responding to human needs. The doer search is ongoing. The deadline is February 21st. So far, we have a total of 55 applicants. Not all have been screened through each level, but I think that's a pretty good response so far. I thank each of you, the legislators who are sitting on in any of the panels, and we appreciate your support. And thank you, Deborah. We will definitely let you know if we need help with any of those vacancies in the searches. But so far, I just thank each of you who've consented to serve on any of the panels. In the way of healthcare, we've established the 4 clinics. We're rolling out the Blue for You for the white collar union. We've established the clinics that will take place in March. So it's rolling out there. So everything's going according to schedule. And I think that's pretty good. Lisa and I.
That's the vaccination, Ruby?
No, that's the Blue for You, which is a part of the Excelis health plan. The blue collar has already done it, and we're rolling out just a trial basis on the white collar union. Lisa and I have discussed the report for the demographics of the workforce. We're working on it. She's also discussed, as Deborah said, looking at the number of employees, essential employees that need to be on site. So some of those projects are ongoing, and we will be able to provide the reports that you requested.
Great.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions? Martha?
Thank you. Thanks, Ruby. Sounds great. You said the doer search. Who's on the search committee for doer?
Oh, we're still confirming all of that. Rich is, Glenn is from this committee, I know. But there are several others. It's going to be a pretty large search. I'm not sure if Jason has all of the names. We're still confirming a few.
Yes, I know. You asked that question before. When we have the final list, I'll send it to you. I'll send it out to the legislature. Probably by this Thursday, I'll have confirmation.
Okay, thank you. And where are we with the search for the chief sustainability officer?
We have a meeting this coming week with our folks at DPS to work out some more details. So probably in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we'll post it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Are we posting the DPS openings along with that?
No, probably not. We'll probably post them separately. I think the DPS ones will probably get out in the next week or so. The CSO may take a little bit longer.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
If I can add then, but once we have the chief sustainability officer, we have to come up with CSO. Once we have that position ready to go, I hope we can sort of package it together with the others. Often you have a critical mass. If you have, say, you know, two partners in a family with similar interests and professional credentials, sometimes it really helps to put that kind of package together.
We talked about, we'll probably advertise, and Ruby, correct me for a moment. When we spoke last, we talked about advertising the 2 planning positions collectively. And then the CSO, we didn't feel we wanted to overlap with the planning positions because we don't necessarily want a planner for that position. There's some synergy, but we didn't feel there'd be value in advertising them collectively. They'll be advertised on overlapping periods of time. So anybody seeing one will see the other.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Just wondered if we are coordinating, Ruby, with your office with the search for the library director. I know they're sort of a separate entity, but are they working with you as well?
They worked with Larry on recruiting and advertising. And of course, our office goes through the applications and forwards them to them as well. So anything they request, we'll help with, but it is a separate entity.
That's a pretty important job, so we want to make sure that we have a great list of candidates to be looked at.
Okay. Well, FYI, and this isn't really a county problem per se, but just so that you're all aware, Kim Jackson, who has been the senior accounting clerk at the Soil and Water Conservation District for several years, and was really instrumental in helping John as he dug soil and water out of the financial hole that they were in, has announced that she's leaving. So that's a key position for soil and water, and they'll be posting for that and trying to replace Kim as soon as possible. Just an FYI. All right, then, if there's no more questions for Ruby, we have resolutions. And whose resolutions are these? Or do they belong to me? Okay. Appropriation from Contingent Fund, Terminal Pay Reimbursement Board of Elections. Document ID 9865. Can I get a motion, please? Glenn moves, Martha seconds. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, wow, this will be a fast meeting. Are we ready to vote? All right then, Mike.
Yes.
Glenn.
Yes.
Martha.
Yes.
Rich.
Yeah, for my first vote, yes.
What's your second vote? You voted yes.
All right then, and I'm a yes, so that passes unanimously. Next resolution, 2020 year-end budget adjustment for room tax in multiple departments, ID 9881. Can I get a motion? Martha. Glenn seconds. Any discussion? Martha.
Yeah, Mike?
Go ahead, Mark.
Going back and forth between screens. So this is, I think, a really good idea. We've already mentioned it before. That $323,000 at the bottom, is that the sum of all the numbers above? I didn't take the time to do it.
Yes,
Okay.
it should be.
All right, and it's clear that this is just for the year 2021, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
No, 2020.
2020.
Just 2020.
This is 20.
So this is part of figuring out what our
Yeah.
total ding on the general fund
Yeah.
balance is. for
This
the
is
year.
essentially a reconciliation of the 2020, now that we have fourth quarter revenue in for.
Oh,
for room
got
tax.
it. Okay. All right. Okay, very good. Thanks.
All right, any other, oh, Mike.
Yeah, just to comment that we talked about this quite extensively at the GO committee, and Jason helped me understand about some of the figures there. Particularly, I was concerned about $89,000 with PCAD, and he explained that that wasn't a big one-time hit to them, that it's already been a part of the reduction. He can explain it better than I can, but I thought that was important.
Well, would anybody like to hear Jason's explanation?
I'll give it to you quick. So TCAD is a contracted agency, so it's considered a supporting agency. So supporting agencies lost or were reduced their third and fourth quarter payments by 25%. So that was the impact to TCAD. We decide to fund TCAD through two sources. One is the levy support and the other is room tax. This impact here does not impact what they received. It just impacts the amount of funding that is used to offset the levy amount. So in this case, it's a loss to us, not a loss to TCAD. They lost third and fourth quarter by 25% each, like every other supporting agency.
Thanks, Jason.
You're welcome.
Martha? You're muted.
Just say yes.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
She's very profound.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to change my question. No, which makes me think about, so now we're into first quarter of 2021. Are we going to do reductions again like we did in 2020 for the nonprofits, for the human services agencies, et cetera?
Hopefully not. I mean, I think we all reduced, I mean, the budget you adopted had reductions in the expected amount of room tax and reductions in the amount of funding you gave for supporting agencies. So I think our hope is that this, we won't have to go through that again. Obviously, if things go awry, sales tax comes in less than we expect again, which we probably won't know. Still, we'll start to see some trends in May and June. If state aid really starts to take a hit again, then we may have to make mid-year corrections. I'm hoping we don't, Martha. I think the budget that was put together was responsible and accounted for what we could account for. So hopefully not.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? We ready to vote? Mike?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Martha?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, next resolution for 2021 appropriations from the Contingent Fund for the purpose of assisting the expansion of access to broadband internet service, ID 9863. Can I get a motion, please? Rich? Mike seconds. Any discussion? Martha? You're still.
Leave myself. I'm gonna just leave myself unmuted because I'm switching back and forth. If you hear the dog bark, it's too bad.
She's a valuable member of the committee, Martha.
Absolutely. So I was reading this. I thought, oh, this is about the broadband project. Wait a minute. It says 2013.
Yeah.
So, and then
This was a funding promise that was made back in 2013. You had budgeted the funding, but the expenditures weren't completed till just last year. So obviously 2013 lapsed. That funding wasn't carried forward. It couldn't have through all those fiscal years. So this is basically a pull from the contingent fund to honor an obligation that the county had made in 2013. This came up in GO, and the questions came up, what did it do to support? So I contacted Mark Whitmer from Caroline. It supported the build out of 14.4 miles of fiber optic cable and provided helped support provide additional service to 136 residents. So that 15,000 went to support a bigger project. So this was an obligation that was done, in 2013, just wasn't fulfilled till now.
All right, thank you.
Okay, yeah, this falls under the category of really old business. So anyway, we ready to vote? Mike,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Martha,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
and I am a yes. So finally,
It just goes to show that even after 7 years, it's not legally dead.
authorizing a contract with Tompkins County Soil and Water Conservation District to provide interim financial assistance to support conservation-related activities, ID 9862. Can I get a motion on this, please? Glenn, Martha seconds. Now this one I can actually explain. Every year, the county lends the Soil and Water Conservation District $200,000 to plug its cash flow issues because most of what it does involves administering grants. And sometimes there's a lag between when the bills need to be paid and when the grant money comes in. And every year they pay us back. And then every year, the next day, we lend them another $200,000. This morning, Jason, John Negley mentioned that he had talked to you and Rick about possibly making this a longer term arrangement so we don't have to pass this money back and forth every year. I think that would be really terrific. But meanwhile, we're still passing it back and forth. So that's what this resolution does. Any questions? Okay, time. Oh, Martha. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a good idea. I don't think it's that much trouble, but I think it's good to make sure that legislators are aware that this is happening.
Yeah, but then what happens is that every year in January and February, the Soil and Water District gets in a real cash flow crunch because not only do they have to give us the $200,000 back and wait for that gap while we then give them the next $200,000, but the state imposes this like moratorium period for about a month where they have to balance all their accounts on these grant programs. So for a month, the Soil and Water Districts can't submit any requests for payments and expect to get them processed and get the money back.
Well, if there's a better month to do it, doesn't really matter to us, I would think. I don't
know.
It's a big chunk of money. I would hate for it to not, I mean, we do that with TC3, you know, when we advance the money with TCAT, when we advance the money. If there's a better way to manage it, then I'm all for that. But I think it's important for the legislature to be aware at every year what happens, how this happens.
Well, I mean, I'm viewing it from the perspective of the Soil and Water District. It's kind of a pain in the butt for them, but I guess that's a debate we'll have. Any other comments? All right, Mike,
I'm sorry?
would you like to vote?
Oh, I'm sorry, you ready to vote? Yes, I vote.
Well,
yes.
I mean,
Sorry.
okay, so that's a yes. Glenn,
Yes.
Martha,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. All right, now we have minutes. Okay, minutes of January 11th. Can I get a motion? Mike, Martha seconds. All in favor? Mike?
Yes.
Oh, wait, Martha has a comment. No? Okay.
I don't know.
Yes, Glenn?
Yes.
Martha?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. January 15th, 2021. Can I get a motion? Glenn moves, Martha seconds. Any discussion? Okay. We're voting now, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay. Glenn,
Yes.
Martha,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. All right. Well, we got through that a lot quicker than I thought we would. So we have a half an hour before we go into executive session. Do we want to try to fill this with clever chat, or or do we want to just reconvene at 4:30 for the executive session?
I think we need to invite other people if we're going to have clever chat.
I'm sorry?
We have to invite other people if we're going to have clever chat.
Yes, our guest stars tonight will be.
We're a clever group.
Yeah, well, don't we usually, maybe not. I saw Kate Shank's booth here at the beginning of this meeting, and I was wondering if she was here for a reason. Does anybody know?
She was here for the values, Deborah. There was a
okay.
values committee, and Kate was the lead in that values committee. Kate, Nick Hemholt, a few other folks. So they had actually done a lot of the heavy lifting on the values.
Well, I wish I'd known that. I would have thanked them for their
Amy
work.
helped facilitate them and so on. So that's why she was here, just to make sure they were passed. If there are any questions, she could answer them.
Okay, so next time there's somebody who needs thanking, somebody warn me.
Will do.
Martha?
Yeah, I was just on the direct report evaluation process. It doesn't actually take a year. It's that we have been starting it in, say, July or August. So if we start it sort
In
of
March?
Yeah, February, March, then that should.
Then we would be done by September when we get on to bigger things. And that's the whole point, yeah.
Yeah. So I think, and I think we didn't, as far as I know, have any questions or concerns about the actual survey questions. This last go round, we had made some edits, so that shouldn't be a problem. I would point out that we've had some difficulty getting the external reviewers. It's sort of been inconsistent about getting external reviewers named by the county people. So I just want to make sure that that's part of the process. I think it is important with these evaluations. So other than that, I think, if human resources, because Laura Granger in HR has been sort of managing it. So I guess it's up to Ruby as far as her schedule and how that works out.
Sorry, Ruby. One thing I did want to float is the idea that when we put out these questionnaires and solicit input from lateral sources within the county, for Rick and for Jonathan, is Jason generally one of the evaluators for them?
I don't think so. I think it's up to them, isn't it?
I think it's called county employed peers is the designation. And I guess I'm not sure if Laura just decides who that goes to, or if the direct report names the peers. You guys would.
I'd have to look into that.
The direct report has given the names of peers.
Well, bye, Jason. Good luck with your important meeting.
Vaccines.
I just think it might be useful to get input from admin, because if there are issues that Rick or Jonathan deal with that impact other departments within the county, Jason might be a person who hears about it and deals with it. It might be just a different perspective. It's just something to think about.
I will get with Laura and find out what the process has been, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Ruby. Mike?
Yeah, I think I'd be reluctant to ask the county administrator to comment on the other direct report. any more than any of the other direct reports to comment on the county administrator. I think we're looking for other peers. I feel.
Okay. So I guess you get, oh, Martha.
Yeah, I mean, we, there's the whole category of county employee peers, and we usually get, numerous people. So I thought maybe all department heads would get the survey. They don't all answer it. And I don't have the book with me here right this minute, but, so Kathy, that's not how it works? You don't know whether all departments?
No, I think the direct report usually gives 3 or 4 names of county peers outside the department.
I thought there were more. Okay. All right. I mean, we'll find out. But I think I think it's worth discussing, because I would agree. Administration obviously has direct relations with everybody. Be important to include them.
Well, and if there are personnel issues, I mean, I don't know, maybe this is something, maybe Ruby would be a good person to have input. I don't know. I'm just trying to broaden the field from which we're getting information, that's all. But we can discuss that later. I think we're all going to take an extended break. Kathy, do we need a motion to reconvene and go into executive session at 4:30?
I would recommend that you make a motion now. And then if you just let us know what time you come out of executive session, then we'll
Do
take care.
that. Okay, may I get a motion to go into executive session to discuss a named employee?
Deborah, Ruby has
Ask a
something to
question
say.
first.
I'm sorry?
May I ask a question first?
Of course you may.
As a newbie, am I supposed to be at the executive session? No, yes, no. Good.
No, I think it's just legislators.
Okay, great. Okay, I will go and speak with Laura, and I'll be in touch with those questions.
That's not always the case, Ruby. There will be executive sessions when we'll want you part of that.
Okay, but you'll let me know.
Yes.
Thank you.
I make a practice of always asking, even if it's in a legislative meeting, because nobody ever tells us to go up. So that might be a good protocol to follow on who's supposed to be there and who's not. But we always ask, Ruby.
That was a good question. Sorry. I'm learning too. Yeah. All right then. Well, did we get this motion?
No, I didn't get the motion.
Okay, Glenn moves. Can I get a second? Martha seconds. All in favor, shout out.
And that's personnel matter concern.
A personnel matter involving a specific named employee or 2 specific named employees. All right then.
Okay.
Martha?
Yes. Peace.
And the Zoom-
Okay, all in favor, raise your hands. Aye, okay, great.
The Zoom link has been sent out.
Yeah, Martha sent the link. It comes from her personally at the to your legislative email address.
Okay.
All right.
I can resend it if you like.
I
Thanks.
think I have it.
Okay.
Okay.
right.
See you all at 4:30.
All right. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.